Alright, so welcome to the second episode of my ZBLL series where I try to learn ZBLL and you guys try to learn with me, I guess. Today we're going to be going over what I would call the Diag subset, what it is. If you just twist these two corners, you get either an N perm, V perm, or a Y perm, or something else. I might be forgetting something. But yeah, that's basically what it is. And that's called the Diag subset because it's a diagonal corner swap. Yesterday we went over what people, I guess, call the 2GLL subset, because it's just these, you twist the corners, then the corners are solved. And it can also be solved in just R and U moves. For this case particular, for the CP set from last episode, we had horizontal matching colors, and can be solved, and every one of them can only be solved in R and U moves. Today we're going over pretty much the complete opposite of that, which is the vertical matching colors. So the first set right here, we see, if you look at the back here, it looks kind of like an NA perm from this angle, and then these two are just opposites. So I like to say that there are two 1x1x2 blocks here that just look kind of like an NA perm. In this case, we're going through this as the first case because it's my COLL alg back when I only knew COLL. So you want to do a U2, and the algorithm for this is R, U prime, R2, D prime, wide R, U2, wide R prime, D, R2, U, R prime. And breaking that down, you got the NA perm resemblance from this angle. You gotta take it with those two blocks here in the back like this. You take this pair out with RU prime, R prime, and then cancel in to kind of a commutator, and then put the pair back in. And of course the algorithm will be in the description. The next alg here is the mirror that I'll send you up. Instead of looking like an NA perm, this one here looks like an NB perm. So in this case, you just want to take the alg from this angle. You want to do R prime U, R2, D, wide R prime, U2, wide R, D prime, R2, U prime, R. And then breaking it down, what it is, you take this back pair out with R prime UR, and then D, not that yet. And then you cancel into another commutator, and then you put the pairs back in. So, and that's the first two cases of this episode. The next case we're going to be looking at is if you take the cube from the back angle. You see kind of a 2x2 block here. So it's kind of like big block here on the right. In this case, you want to do a U to set it up so the block is here at the front left position, and the AL goes like RU, R prime U, RU, R2, D prime, wide R, U2, wide R prime, D, R2, U, R prime. And then setting that up, I have the wrong case set up. So basically, setting that up, again we have the case, we gotta put the 2x2 block here in the front left, and basically you take this pair out with RU, R prime, do a U, and then RU, R prime, and then I'll break this up, and then kind of a commutator thing again, and then you just insert the pair in directly. So that's that alg. So the next case is if you look from the back and we see the 2x2 block here on the left. In this case, you want to put that in the back left position, so it's the same U move as the last case, and the algorithm goes R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, U prime, R2, D, wide R prime, U2, wide R, D prime, R2, U prime, R. And then breaking that down, what it is, it's the mirror of the last case. What you do here, you got to take this back pair out. Well, actually, first you got to do the cube from this angle here. So you take the back pair out with R prime, U prime, R, and then put it over here, and then break the pair up like so with R prime, U prime, R again, and then kind of a commutator from the back, and then insert this back pair back in directly. So those are the two cases for basically if there's a 2x2 block anywhere. So the next case here is if you see it from the back angle, and then you see kind of a block here on the right, And that's about it. It's just a 1x1x2 block. The algorithm for this goes R prime, U prime, R, U2, R, D prime, R prime, U prime, R, D prime, R2, U, R, U prime, U, R. And then breaking that down, I set it up to the wrong case. Let's see. Okay, got it. So breaking that down, you gotta just take the cube from this angle. You got the 1x1x2 block here. You take this back pair out like so, and then do a U2, and then kind of a commutator thing going on, and then that will cancel into solving the pair like so. And that is the algorithm. So the next case here is the mirror of the previous one. Instead of having the block here on the right, the last case, this case we have the block on here on the left. What you want to do, U2, and then put the bar back here in the kind of the left back position, and this is the algorithm. RU, R prime, U2, R prime, D prime, RU, R prime, D, R2, U prime, R prime, U, RU prime, R prime. And setting that case up, you got to take the cube from this angle, because I'll put this here and I'll set it up to actually doing the algorithm. What you do, you want to take this front pair out with RU, R prime, then do a U2 to put it back here, and then do kind of a commutator thing going on here. That'll cancel into solving the pair, like so. And that's this case. The next case we have here is if there is a 1x1x2 block here, kind of in a front left position, and it'll just look like this, the only block on the cube. What you want to do a U prime to put it back here, and the algorithm for this is kind of weird ergonomics, because you start with the weird grip. The algorithm is R2, U prime, RU, F prime, U2, R prime, U2, R, F, U, R. And you saw that I had kind of a weird grip like this in the cube, but setting that up, what it is, you got to take the cube from this angle. I'll put the piece back here, and then you start with this grip, which is already a bad algorithm if you do that. But I would do an R2 for a home grip, and then U prime, R, U, which is not very that intuitive, but I would go ahead and use my index finger to push a U prime, and then R, and then U. And then that already sets me up to do F prime with my ring finger like this. And then U2, R prime, U2, R, which is kind of a trigger. Like that. So it's basically just putting this here and then doing R prime to make this, like I would think of as making this block. And then U2, I would think of that making a block back here. And then R by putting that kind of like a pseudo 2-2-3 in the back down position. And now you're at this grip, and FUR is the next 3 moves, or the last 3 moves. How I would do an F move to put it to kind of like a push ring finger for F, and then U prime, and then R like so. And that is the algorithm. It is pretty tough to learn, but that is the algorithm. So the next case here is a mirror of the previous one, but I don't use the mirror alg. These are the type of algorithms I don't use the mirrors of for this case, simply because it's bad. Because the last one, which is a better version of this mirror, is, well, pretty much is the best alg you can get, and it's still pretty bad. So why would we use the mirror of it? Why? So this alg right here, you see a kind of a 1x1x2 block here in the front left position, kind of. You don't want to do any adjustments. You just want to take the cube from this angle. And what it is R prime, U prime, R, U, R2, D prime, R, U2, R prime, D, R2, U2, R prime, U2, R. And setting that up, you take the cube from this angle, like normal, like this, with the front left 1x1x2. You do kind of a back sexy thing, so you gotta like do a back sexy move, and then R2, which will keep you this grip, and then a push D prime while regripping, and then RU, so kind of like putting this pair here, you gotta put it in the back with a U2, and then DR2, and then now you just got to do kind of a reverse back sexy, except all the U moves are U2, so U2 R prime U2 R, and then that is the case. It's a lot more simpler than the last one, but those are the algs I use for this case. So the next case here is pretty hard to memorize because all you see in the back is just a big jumble of colors, and there isn't any like opposite edge pieces, so you can't just memorize it from that. You see just a big jumble of colors like what this looks like. But I like to know it. I like to look kind of here in the back angle like this, and then I'll see that this edge is opposites with these two corners. So the algorithm for this, you put a U, so we got that kind of like these two and this edge piece that's opposite from these two. Put that on the right, so basically like this, and the algorithm wide R, U, M, U, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, U prime, wide R, U prime, R prime, F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. And then how to memorize that is basically you take the key from this angle, and what you do is wide R, U, M. So that kind of like does, it's not intuitive at all. And then U. And then the next thing is a back sexy move. And then R prime, U prime. And then you insert this back in while solving this edge. So wide R, U prime, R prime. And I'll set it up to this kind of like a OLL right here, which is just F sexy F prime. And that is the algorithm. The next case, if I can try to set it up, let's see. There it is. The next case is the same thing, just a big jumble of colors right here. But instead, here in the back, we have a big bar. So what I would do, I would put the bar here in the right, like just like a U move. And the algorithm is R, U, R, D, R, U, or R prime, U, R, D prime, R prime, U, L prime, U, R prime, U prime, L. And then setting it up, and to break it down, you put the bar here that you see in the back, you put that in the right, and then what you do, you start kind of like an R perm, like R, U, R, D prime, and then do R prime, U prime, R, D prime, which is again part of the R perm. But instead of doing R prime, U to R prime, you do R prime, U, and then L prime, U, but you'll set it up to kind of like the end of a Nicholas case. And that's the algorithm. So those are those two cases. The next case I have here today is that there's another big jumble of just colors in general. And the only difference between this is that these two are opposite. These two are opposite colors. So we have opposite colors on the left. How other people like to memorize is kind of the Z-perm resemblance from like this angle right here. You see kind of a Z-perm checkerboard looking thing. How I like to notice is that there's two opposite colors here. So the algorithm for this, you do a U2 to put the opposite colors here in the back. Kind of like a left back position. The 2x2 Z-perm looking thing on the back left position. The algorithm for this, R, U prime, R prime, U2, R, D prime, R prime, U, R prime, U2, R, U, R prime, D, R prime. And breaking that down here, again, we have the opposite colors here on the left. So you do a U2 to bring it to the right. And what you do, you take this pair out, and then do a U2, and then kind of a commutator thing going on here. And then after that, it's pretty self-explanatory doing R prime, D, R prime to fix everything. And that is, well, that's the algorithm. The next case I have here today, is, again, we have a big jumble of colors, except the right ones are opposite, and the little checkerboard Z-perm looking thing is on the left. Again, how I like to notice this is that there are opposite colors on the right. How a lot of people do this is a Z-perm checkerboard thing here on the left. What I do, I don't do an AUF, so I don't do a AUF, I don't do a U2 U prime or a U. I just check it from the back angle, and the algorithm is pretty weird. It's F U prime R2 U, R prime U, R U2, R2 U prime, R U2 R prime F prime. And breaking that down, it's pretty hard to set it up. But breaking that down here, you do the cube from this angle. It's F U prime to start, and then R2 to bring this kind of like 2x2x1 block here. Break it, and then R prime U R. That I don't know why. I just kind of like take this back pair out looking thing, and then U2 to fix the bar back here, and then R2 to make a 2x2x3 block here in the back down, U prime, and then to put these two over here, I do RU2 R prime, and then an F prime will fix the first two layers, and that's the algorithm. So that's the end of this video, episode 2 of the ZBLL series. Out of 6, it will finish. I'm not sure how soon it will finish, but it will. So that's the end of this video. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.